Hello again everybody. So it's getting to that time of year again, winter is on its way, and obviously a lot of people will be getting their bikes ready to put in storage or whatever and keep them nice and out of the rubbish until spring, summer next year. But for a lot of you guys out there, and for myself included, you'll be using your bikes throughout the winter for commuting and stuff like that. Now obviously as a result of that, they're going to get quite mucky and they're going to get all sorts of stuff like salt from the road and stuff like that on them, which is going to basically, it's going to start to rust components and wear things down and things like that. So it's quite important for us to keep our bikes well maintained and clean and whatever else to kind of prevent that from happening and to help them last that little bit longer. So I'm going to take you guys through my weekly procedure. This is something I do at the weekend in preparation for the following week. As I say, it's not like I don't full on clean the bike properly every single week, but this is just a little procedure just to keep everything in top working order effectively. So let's go through my sort of selection of tools and things that I use for this. So I've got a selection of cloths, got a selection of dirty cloths for the more grubby areas, a selection of cleaner cloths for polishing the tank and stuff like that. I've got, this is literally just soap and water in a spray bottle. That's sort of handy just for getting bits off here and there. This is actually kerosene. I know it says petrolier on there, that's actually the Czech word for it, but it's kerosene in there. And this is just chain lube. That's that. And then I've got a selection of brushes. This obviously is an old toothbrush. Then this is a little set of brushes that I got quite recently. Just a few different ones here, chain brush, that kind of thing. And of course, the most important thing in any British person's toolkit, a cup of tea. So let's get started. So the first thing I pretty much always do, at least once a week, is clean the chain. So I'm going to take let's take both of these actually. Take these, and that'll do for the minute. Right, so come around here. Okay. So you guys will see that I've taken the front sprocket cover off as well, because I like to make sure that everything is relatively clean, because obviously, I mean, any time of year when you're riding along you get a certain amount of crap come up and get into the chain anyway, but during the winter there's a lot more rubbish on the roads and stuff like that, and mud and stuff like that. It's going to get up in the chain, and anything that ends up in the chain as it goes round is going to basically help to wear down your sprockets and everything else and the chain itself faster. So keeping it clean and well lubricated will be a huge benefit to you and help to make the chain last longer. The other thing about it is obviously during the winter when you're riding along you get a lot of salt from the road comes up as well. That can cause the chain to rust, it can cause it to seize in certain places, and you really want your chain to be obviously free moving and basically as clean and nice as you can keep it. So it's a good idea, as I say, once a week, just to give it a bit of a clean and keep it nice, basically. Yeah, you'll thank yourself for it later when you're not replacing it every 5 minutes. So what I tend to do, I also need that, actually no, I don't need it just yet, is for actually cleaning the chain I use the kerosene. Kerosene is a fantastic thing for cleaning chains, mostly because it's cheap as chips. That's one of the big benefits. There's no point in going out there and buying all these expensive chain cleaners and claim to do this, that and the other, because effectively it's all just the same stuff anyway. Kerosene will help to get rid of all the crap that's on the chain. It also leaves a slightly oily kind of residue on the chain as well, which kind of helps to keep it lubricated. It's not a replacement for using actual chain lube as well, but it just kind of helps it along a little bit. I should point out, whatever you do, don't use kerosene to clean your brakes and things like that, because as I say, it does actually leave like an oily residue behind, and because it is effectively an oil, so pretty bad idea to be using that to clean your brakes because they're not going to work. But for your chain it's absolutely ideal. So what I do is move the chain along until I can see the master link, which is there, and then literally just give a few little squirts. I get my brush, get it on there, and just give it a good old going over. Make sure that I get all the rubbish and everything else I twist the brush around as well, and I sort of twist it like this to make sure it makes good contact with the chain. Just get it on all sides. Let's move this along a bit. Give it a bit more of a squirt. There we go. Bend this back in a bit. There we go. Bit more of a squirt. I actually really enjoy doing this. It's like, I enjoy riding the bike, but maintaining it and keeping it nice and clean and stuff like that is also quite enjoyable. It's just a nice way to relax. I just like to come out to the garage and spend some time doing this and just not think about anything. Okay. That's it. Okay, there we go, and we're back at the master link. So, next thing I want to do, just grab one of my really grotty cloths, that one will do, and just as an added thing, I'll just give it a bit of a wipe over like this as well. Okay. I like to use the brush first to get the worst of it off, and then give it a quick wipe like this. That's it. There we go. Okay, there you go guys, look at that. Much better. Let's say it's going to get covered in stuff anyway as you're riding throughout the week, but if you can clean it and get it like this at the weekend, then it just means you're not accumulating too much crap in there. So the next thing I'm going to do is just put a little bit of this on this cloth and just give this back sprocket a bit of a clean, like so. Just the teeth. I'm not too worried about the inside or anything like that, but just where it makes contact with the chain. Just going to clean it off a bit. There we go, that's good. And then a similar thing at the front here, just for the front sprocket. I'm just going to give it a bit of a clean around, just to make sure that I've not got too much stuff in there. It's also a good idea, whilst you're doing this and whilst you've got these covers off, just to inspect your sprockets, see if they're in good condition. I don't know how well you guys can see this, but my teeth in my sprocket here are good shape. They look as they should be. What you'll tend to find is as they wear down, they kind of wear into like a hook sort of shape. So if that starts to happen, you start to see kind of like a hook sort of thing going on with the teeth, then it's pretty worn and it's probably time to start thinking about replacing it. Same thing with the rear sprocket as well. But mine are in pretty good condition. They're not actually that old, so that's to be expected. So the next thing I'm going to do is just get a little bit of soap and water, and you tend to find that you get like a build-up of crap up in here and also in the cover, which I'll grab over there in a minute. So I'm just going to spread a tiny bit of that in there, just give that a bit of a going over, just again so it doesn't accumulate too much in there. There we go. And then also, if you guys can see this, you've got some chain guides here. I'm just going to give them a bit of a wipe as well. They tend to, because what happens is obviously the oil and stuff off the chain gets onto these, and then dirt and stuff sticks to them and starts to accumulate. So again, it's good just to keep that nice and clean as much as you can. I'll lift the chain up here and just give it a bit of a thingy under there. And then the last thing you've got, hopefully you guys can see this down here, there's actually another sort of chain guide thing, like a roller thing. Now mine's actually not in too bad condition at the minute, because I actually took this off and cleaned it the other day. But I'd say probably once every couple of months or something, you can take these off. It's just a bolt there. You can take that off and just give it a bit of a clean. But as I say, they tend to get all crappy anyway. It's natural, but just as long as they don't get huge lumps of crap stuck in them, then all is good. Right, so that's pretty much it for the chain. Now, what I'm going to do now is leave this for a little while, just to sort of dry and settle down and stuff like that, and then once that's done that, I'll then go over it with the chain lube, give it a nice covering, and then again leave it. When you lubricate your chains, it's usually a good idea to do it sort of in the afternoon or something like that, when you're not going to use the bike, so you can lubricate the chain and then leave the bike overnight for that lube to settle in. Because what can happen if you lubricate your chain and then go for a ride straight away, half of that chain lube can get flung off before it's had a chance to settle into the chain. So good idea just to do that. Right, so moving on to the next thing. Obviously that's our chain sorted, apart from lubing it, which we'll do later. So the next thing is to go around the bike and just basically give it a bit of a clean, and make sure we've not got any accumulation of stuff on it that's going to cause it to rust. So that's again where we grab one of our other dirty cloths for the minute and our thing of soapy water. And as I say, I tend to, I'm a little bit bordering on obsessive with this, so I tend to go over everything and just get rid of, I don't make it perfect, but I get rid of the worst of the mud and any like big bits of mud that are sticking on. I tend to go up in here and stuff like that. But the main sort of areas you want to concentrate on are things like underneath the bike. So obviously you're going to get a lot of stuff from the road coming up underneath the bike, like salt and stuff like that. So just give it a good wipe over every now and again, just to stop that from accumulating too much and rusting away your frame. Same thing with like the front, engine mounts, stuff like that, bits underneath. Around the back here, don't know how well you can see from there, so I'll come around the other side. Yeah, so around here where you've got the swing arm, stuff like that, basically anywhere where rubbish and stuff from the road can get up into it. You'll notice, I hope you guys can see this, you'll notice on my bike where I've got the single suspension in the middle, it's got this kind of little bit here where stuff can get stuck in there, and over time that can obviously corrode things and cause issues. So as I say, it's just a case of giving everything a little bit of a spray of soap and water and just giving it a wipe over. As I've mentioned, this isn't cleaning it properly. If you were going to clean it properly, you might get your pressure washer out, or you might, get a bucket of water and give it a proper going over. This is just a sort of weekly get the worst off kind of deal, if that makes sense. So then finally, obviously I'm not going to do this whole thing, I'm just sort of explaining it to you guys. The final thing is obviously, well, not the final thing actually, second to last thing is going to be your brakes. So for this sort of thing, definitely recommend having proper brake cleaner. As I said, you don't want to use stuff like kerosene because it will leave a oily surface on your brakes and will cause issues. So it's a good idea, again, just don't necessarily have to clean them once a week, but certainly inspect your brakes once a week. Make sure they're clean, make sure they're in good working order, and if they are a bit dirty, give them a good going over with brake cleaner and keep them, nice. Obviously very important, especially this time of year, because the road surfaces aren't as good. You want to make sure that everything, including your brakes, works well. So that's that. Right, so the last thing is lubricating various bits. Now, I've actually run out of grease, I need to go get some more, but I tend to have a pot of multi-purpose grease, and of course a can of WD-40, and it's a good idea to go around the bike and just grease and lubricate any bits that are obviously move and are likely to seize up if they start to corrode and stuff like that. So again, it's a good idea to get a bit of grease or whatever in the the joint of the suspension there. I actually had that before. I had a Vespa 250 a while back, and this bit down here actually seized in position, so the suspension wasn't quite working properly, and that caused issues. So obviously we freed it up again, but that was my fault for not maintaining it. And then of course you've got other lubrication points, such as your clutch arm here. Good idea to give that a bit of a spray or a bit of grease or whatever, just to keep it free. And then once you've obviously done all that, it's a good idea just to go around the bike in general and just make sure everything works properly. Pull your clutch, make sure that there's no you know, resistance or anything there, make sure it's all free moving, make sure your brakes obviously let go properly. That's another thing. Years back when I had my first big bike, my 600, I had an issue where my front brakes were actually slightly seized on, so it rode and everything else, but they never fully released properly. So it's a good idea to check that, because again, where you've got stuff from the road coming up into the brake calipers and stuff like that, if you don't keep them well maintained and cleaned, what can happen is they can basically seize. So as I say, good idea to keep that well maintained. And that's pretty much it. That's my weekly ritual, if you like, just to keep the bike in good working order, so that it's reliable, gets me to work and wherever else I need to go. So there you go, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a like. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel. Go check out my other videos. And for now, I'll catch you again soon.